I'm Sasha Nicole.
And I'm Star.
And I'm Dr. T.
And this is Amerikan Therapy, the definitive podcast on all things Black mental health. And we have a really important show today. We're extremely excited. Star, tell us what we're doing today.
Okay, so today we are talking about blue lines and black bodies, the Black Male Police Edition. Okay, now, all right.
Yeah, we're super hyped to have the Black
That's
Male
some cute cops.
So
don't look like nobody ever arrested me.
So we're going to get it started with who we have for the lineup today. We're starting off with Officer Bo Braxton, born Frankfurt, Germany, raised in South and Hinesville, Georgia, went to Valdosta State University and has a BA in sociology. He's been in law enforcement for 11 years and has been on undercover Vice Human Traffic Unit, Active Shooter Unit, General Patrol, and has done warrants in the 11 years that he has been in service. And then we also have Officer Taj Beaufort, who was born in Newark, New Jersey, and completed college at my alma mater, Virginia State University. He became a deputy sheriff with Loudoun County Sheriff's Office in the Corrections Division. And after serving Loudoun County for 3 years, he transferred to Fairfax Police Department, where he spent 7 years doing patrol work and numerous plainclothes assignments. And he's currently a detective in the Personnel Division, which handles recruiting, background investigations, physical abilities, testing, and more. And then last but not least, we have Keenon M. James, who serves as the Deputy Director for the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, otherwise known as NOBLE, where he oversees the organization's mission to enact and impart fairness in policing and the criminal justice system. Mr. James combines over 15 years of experience and expertise in criminal justice research, public safety policy, and community engagement to address the pressing issues related to community police relations, civil rights, and integrity of policing. Prior to joining the leadership team, he led the team at U.S. Department of Justice Community-Oriented Police Services Collaborative Reform Initiative, damn, that's a long title, which engaged community and police departments following high-profile officer use of incidents, including Ferguson, St. Anthony, Minnesota, North Charleston, South Carolina, and San Francisco, California. He's a graduate of North Carolina Central University. In addition to numerous service awards from local and federal law enforcement agencies, he's also received honors from his alma mater for excellence in law enforcement and the university's 40 Under 40 Alumni Award. So, gentlemen, we are really, really extremely happy to have you all. This is a very important discussion, especially given the climate that we all are currently in, which seems to be a very racially charged climate, as well as just being able to have you all speak up as officers, because oftentimes we don't really get that. And we believe, at least from my perspective, that some of our officers, especially our Black officers' voices oftentimes gets diminished in what's really taking place. So thank you all for being here.
Sure.
And Star, we're going to start with Bo because he actually is getting ready to start work.
That's why he's trying to lock me up. Hold up now.
And you know, he is our frat brother as well, by the way.
And you know what? This is Boulay week. This would be our Boulay week. So there you go. All right, V5, so sweet. All right. So, Brother Bo, okay, now, look. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and ask you, I've had interactions with law enforcement, okay, but like, seriously, like, what is it like being a Black police officer? I have a family full of cops, full of Black police officers, but, and one of the things they've always said is like, they'll talk freely with family, but they can't talk obviously that way in their job and to their superiors. And like, what are you all going through before we go in? Because we're gonna go in on y'all, right? Because y'all here, so we gotta do it for the community. But before we go in, what is it like for you all as police officers in this current climate? Given, I'm sure you know the systemic racism better than we do.
Well, let me say this. Past couple weeks been kind of rough. Can you hear me? Yeah, I know my voice kind of raspy. But the past couple weeks been kind of rough, coming from both sides, coming from people that I've known for all these years and people who just now growing accustomed to me. It's been kind of emotional. It's been like a roller coaster of different emotions coming from starting off, well, really for the past year, really, but this past couple of weeks have been kind of tested, especially with me being in Metro Atlanta. Atlanta's chocolate city, so it's been different. You know what I'm saying? It's been very emotional. It's kind of hard to deal with everything because basically we're getting attacked from both sides. You know what I'm saying? But it's been kind of frustrating. But right now I'm managing to get through. It's a lot easier to get through once you got a management that's basically supports for Black officers. Like, but my chief is allowing me to say what I want to say, feel how I want to feel, speak up on what I want to speak about. As you can tell, I'm actually at work. I got my shield in the background, so he actually approves of everything I'm doing as far as speaking out how I feel about it, saying what officers mess up, saying what officers do right. He actually values my opinion, but the sad thing about it, a lot of agencies don't allow that. You know what I'm saying? Like with my supervisors, I got a Black sergeant, I got a white lieutenant, I got a white major, and I got a white chief. You know what I'm saying? The dynamics of that.
Is your union rep in the Metro Atlanta area Black?
We don't got a union.
So you're not part of the Fraternal Order of Police?
I'm not.
Okay. Oh, you chose not to be a member. Okay.
Well, I just transferred to this agency. But when I was at the sheriff's office before this one, there was no union. Not that type of union. Well, we had attorney groups, but as far as
I tell you, my dad used to be union rep for. My dad is a retired Prince George's County fireman, so that's why I'm like, hold up, you're not in the FOP. Hold on, there.
Yeah, but me personally, like, as far as the actual established union, police union, we don't have a union in Georgia.
Okay. Because of the Southern, I got you the rules down there. But let me ask you, are you guys getting any mental health support? Because, we are a mental health show, and I can just see, everything that's going on. Are they providing that for you?
Mental health support is always available if you feel as if you need it. You can't force us to do mental health evaluations, but they're always available. And basically, you gotta go through the right protocol to go about it. I wouldn't say I need any mental health evaluations because I got a lot of different outlets between my family and my fraternity and other cops and other family members. I would say, me personally, I'm taking it in stride, but a lot of other officers don't have that outlet, you know what I'm saying? But as far as a mental health plan, we don't have one. Like, as far as you are mandatory that you have to go there, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's no mandatory mental health agency for us to go to, but there is one available if needed.
So, Bo, for you being in Atlanta, and as we know what's been going on with the mayor, with the Wendy's burning down, I mean, so many different things that has been happening. Can you just, because I've seen from a social media standpoint that you've oftentimes tried to offer both sides of, both perspectives of what's taking place. And a lot of times, as you mentioned, you get it from both sides. But from an officer standpoint, can you help enlighten anyone who may listen about what is the right, and I'm trying to choose my word, and I don't want to say choose my words carefully, but the question is, like, what is the right way to handle situations like that? Because I've seen you say you'll go to Black businesses and, they'll be like, they don't even want to serve you because you're a cop. Then you'll see situations where, like the whole Wendy situation, and you'll say there's certain things that if you're being arrested that you should do or that you should follow that can maybe help de-escalate.
Well, let me say this. When it comes to that Wendy situation, that was a tragic situation. You know what I'm saying? And yes, when it comes to officers, we have different options of what we can do certain things. And it really depends on what state you in. Like, I talked to many officers in different states. When it comes to DUIs are mandatory. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really depends on what kind of state you're in. Me personally, I would have went about it a whole different way. You know what I'm saying? But just because I would have went about it a whole different way doesn't mean what he did was the wrong way or the right way, but it was a way that was legal. You know what I'm saying? Because when it comes to DUIs in Georgia, as far as my agency within Georgia, our job is to get DUI driver, possible DUI, off the road. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I would have got him off the road by calling somebody to come get him. Now, that's just by using discretion. When it comes to discretion, that's all dependent on the officer. You know what I'm saying? And some agencies push DUIs depending on what kind of community they have. Other agencies are not, well, I wouldn't say they're lax about it, but they'll allow you to use discretion. Like last week, I had a possible DUI driver, you know what I'm saying? But instead of me taking him to jail, I told him, because he was in town from Jersey, he went to the club. He's coming down 75, and he got off of my exit.
What club you go to? Hold on. What club you go to?
Don't worry.
I got the best strip clubs.
Don't even worry about the club he went to. Just know he went to the club. But you know what I'm saying? But long story short, I didn't physically see him driving, but the traffic that I got over dispatch when there's a possible DUI driver 15, 20 miles per hour below the speed limit. So when I came in contact with him, it said it was a black Camaro. I saw the black Camaro. It was like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So I already know that was him. He was parked in a parking lot trying to call his people, trying to find out where the next spot was. So, you know what I'm saying? But at that point in time, I used discretion about, you know what I'm saying? Do me a favor, bro. Call your people. Tell them come get you. Come get your whip. I like to give people options when it comes to situations like that, because me personally, he didn't cause no damage. He didn't hit nobody. He didn't kill nobody. He was the reason I even knew he was even drinking is because he was going below the speed limit because he was lost and using the GPS. And my initial contact with him, I could smell alcohol in his breath. So I know he'd been drinking, you know what I'm saying? But I'm not the type of dude that's going to do all the DUI sobriety tests, all that extra joint, unless it really needed. You know what I'm saying? So with the whole Wendy situation, I would nip that in the bud before he even started. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all about discretion. I'm not saying the officer, I talk about it on my Facebook, my Instagram. I'll never say the officer was wrong. I'll never say the officer was right. You know what I'm saying? But he did go about everything by the book. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to the law, he went about it right. So
shooting a man in the back is by the book? I'm not asking. I'm asking literally from a policy standpoint, because literally, like, I've been the last 3 weeks on Capitol Hill. You know, like, I'm even pushing back on CBC's recommendations. So this is literally like, I want to know, is that by the book?
So look, I'm just gonna say this: the dynamics of the whole incident changed once he turned around with that weapon and fired it, point blank. Because to make it real, how about this? If that officer really wanted to hurt that man, if he really feels as if his life was really in danger, I ask people the same question all the time. Mm-hmm. When he initially took his taser, by law, he could have used lethal force then.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But he
under
didn't.
Proper standards. Okay.
Yeah, by the book, he could have used lethal force then, but he didn't. When he took off, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, a lot of people saying, yeah, he could have let him run. He could have, you know what I'm saying, get his information later. Yeah, he could have, but everybody's doing Monday, you know what I'm saying, Monday quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Like, at the end of the day, he made a decision. Both of them made a decision. Mm-hmm. And the dynamics of him running and him trying to get away, and then him turning and firing a weapon, it changed the dynamics of the whole situation. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I wouldn't let it got that far. But I'm sorry it happened. It sucks. You know what I'm saying? But
then that, like what you just said, I wouldn't have let it got that far, right?
First of all,
this is the point. This is a point that, like, in the barbershop we talking about, right? Is that right. So, and I understand the law. So I believe you to be directionally correct on the application of that probable cause standard. That's going to be adjudicated in court, so we'll figure that out later, right? But here's the thing. Why are we not seeing those same circumstances with Black officers? If it really is like
because it happens all the time. You just don't hear about it.
Don't hear about it. It's fact.
Don't hear about it. And like, if you go on my Facebook, I posted the whole encounter on my Facebook. The only reason I posted it, because my chief is allowing me to be transparent with everything I do on the road. You know what I'm saying? like somebody recorded me this past weekend arresting a dude that just robbed with the malt down here. He's allowed me to be transparent with whatever I want to be transparent with in regards to reform and how his officers are dealing with citizens in the community.
I hear you that the Department of Justice statistics don't support what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying as a personal matter. You've seen it happen with Black officers, and white and brown, but the statistics don't show that.
So I believe there was a shooting in PG County.
Yes, there was. Yes, you're right.
And an officer in a car.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, nobody talked about it. And that one was horrible. That was horrible.
Well, it was talked about here, but I know you're absolutely right. It was not like this officer demonized.
And a lot of police, and a lot of police encounters with citizens is not newsworthy. You know what I'm saying? The whole point of the news is to make everybody get in an uproar. So that's why when certain things are posted and everything is shared, it's always to get people in an uproar, to get a reaction so they can get views. That's how they get paid.
My last pushback though on that is that my dad is the first Black fireman hired in the 80s in Prince George's County, professional fireman, paid man hired in PG County, which is the wealthiest Black county in America. And so the only other pushback is my dad and I took him to a meeting I went to on Capitol Hill because he had the union understanding, and the legal side. And the one thing is that I get everything you're saying, because y'all good dudes, but why are Black communities so heavily, one, it's seemingly over police and just from a statistical and number standpoint, and two, why are the officers so overwhelmingly white and not from those communities?
One thing, let me say this.
Say this with the understanding of at least for the DC, Prince George's County, like our local area, like they are literally recruiting people in Ohio, Kansas, West Virginia, like all over the country, aka where there are very low Black populations.
But it's the fact that a lot of Black men, a lot of Black women aren't getting into law enforcement. You know what I'm saying? It's not because they're not getting hired. It's because one is because of the climate, and two, a lot of black folks don't want to deal with the backlash of them becoming officers. Like me, I don't care.
Because I tell you the story of my dad. Literally, he was he had studied for a year for this test, right? And it doesn't seem like a big deal for people who aren't in law enforcement or the fire department. These are exceptionally good jobs with exceptionally good benefits, and they have high standards and requirements. He took his test literally back then, and I think even still to this day, you have to take a test for these kind of jobs. They wouldn't give him a copy of the test. They said that he failed the test, right? They said all the Black firemen had failed. It was 5 of them that tried. He was like, I know I got every answer right on this test. I know I got this test right. And then he said he's outside with the white boys who took the test at the same time. They all got to take it at the same time. And they got copies of the fucking test in their hand. They man, right? I'm just
I can't say that.
Go ahead, Bo.
I can't say that. I can't say that not all agencies are corrupt. There's some jacked up agencies. I can't speak on them. Across the board, there's some jacked up agencies. There's some jacked up officers. There's some jacked up supervisors and chiefs. It's just it's jacked up people. You know what I'm saying? We can't help that. All that we can do is be a part of an organization that is not jacked up. The agency that I'm with right now is not a jacked up agency. You know what I'm saying? Everything that's going on, my chief is calling me, checking on me, make sure that he's checking on more of his Black officers to make sure they're mentally good to go to work, because there's a lot more pressure on us because what's going on and with black men and black women around across the nation. He's making sure we good and stable and mentally ready to go to work. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of officers don't get that. You know what I'm saying? So I forgot the question you just asked. You asked about
The recruiting.
The recruiting process, because one of the things that I'm like, I'm fighting. Like the FOP, they send me such nasty emails and stuff, but we're trying to create, just like you have for federal law enforcement, you have a clearance process that's under the DOD, and it's standardized. It's not local. It's not my cousin's sister working HR, and to make that retroactive for all officers, current and future, to have to go through the same clearance process. And that is the thing that has honestly been one of the biggest, like, nah, we ain't doing that. Because and again, this is my gut, and with these cases coming out, then you start talking about people's records and backgrounds, and then you start saying, well, should this person have ever been a police officer? Should they ever have been in this role? You know, and we need y'all. Because y'all got our, I'm hoping y'all got our back. I believe you do. We need good black officers. But my last question to you before you go, what do you guys need to bring, what do you need policy-wise to be able to do your job better and to protect black people? I'm not going to say black people.
And me, honestly, I'm just going to speak on my agency right now. I wouldn't say we need a policy change in my agency. Only thing I would say nationwide, you need to get better officers. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody's department is different. Everybody's policy is different. Everybody's state law is different, depending on where you at. So when it comes to what do we need to be better, what do I need? My department, we're fine over here. Like we don't have no issues like that over here because my chief sets the standard from the top. In order for your organization to succeed and be successful when it comes to law enforcement, it has to be led from the top. It ain't my job, you know what I'm saying, to make sure everybody's good. It's the chief's job. Everybody's going to follow the mindset of the chief. And if you got a racist ass chief, that's what they're going to follow, that mindset. Especially in South Georgia. Like I grew up in South Georgia. That's the whole reason I became the police. Just so people can get a different perspective of what cops are supposed to look like, act like, talk like, walk, you know what I'm saying? That's why I got in this field. And right now, we're getting a lot of backlash, but this is the reason why I'm here. You know what I'm saying? This is the reason why I'm doing all these podcasts and speaking to folks. If you got questions, I'll answer it. I don't deal with rants, but if you have an honest question about law enforcement, I'll tell you what's good. I'm going to tell you from both sides. I'm going to tell you what I agree with. You know what I'm saying? Because people got a misconception when it comes to situations nationwide, when it comes to cops, they always think that we always back in the blue and the blue. No, it ain't back in the blue. It's back in common sense, right and wrong. If a cop messed up, yeah, he effed up. If he did it right, hey, he did it right. I don't know what to say. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to all these situations, public opinion doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got something to say, but don't know what the hell they talking about. Like everybody I see on my Facebook got something to say. They never wore a badge, they never wore a gun, but they know so much about law enforcement from Facebook. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody got Facebook degrees.
Well, Dr. Roy, so before we lose bro, like what it weigh in here from just like I can't even imagine the stress his brother is under.
Yeah, but like I said, there's a lot of stressed out brothers in the streets, a lot of stressed out sisters, you know what I'm saying? But as long as they got good outlets, keep a good circle of people around them, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I ain't going nowhere. I'm on year 11 now. I got like 19 to go. So I ain't going nowhere no time soon. But I do want to speak about what you said about why folks think, well, you said people don't look like the people that work in the community.
Yeah. Yeah, it is overwhelmingly in high populations, white police officers.
I'll tell you this. I live in Metro Atlanta, right? I will never work in the area where I live. Ever.
Hold on.
Right.
Never, ever.
So my opinion is different. Because I work in Fairfax County. And I would live in Fairfax County any day.
See, I work in the South Side, but I live on the East Side. You know what I'm saying? Now, I would say it's basically the dynamics of black folk is Atlanta and black folks everywhere. But me personally, I wouldn't want to work in the same area where I wouldn't want to work in the same area where I live at, dealing with my wife, my kids. So just because I'm real community-based when it comes to the citizens, it's still people I still lock up for meth, drugs, dope, you know what I'm saying, abuse, rape, all this other stuff. So they see me at Walmart, I'm with my family. You know what I'm saying?
You don't live in the Bluff. You don't live in the Bluff. That's what is the Bluff in
What is the Bluff? What is the Bluff?
Worst neighborhood possible in Atlanta.
So you working for a metro city. So when you do lock people up, do you see them? Like, so for me,
No.
I work in Fairfax. I go to the club, I see them. I'm in the VIP section, and they like, yo, what's good? I'm like, what's good? And it don't be no beef.
No.
It be love. It be love.
For years, I have came across people that I arrested with no issues.
Love.
But what about that one guy you pissed off?
You're right.
I see me with my family. I can't risk my family, man. I can't do it.
You're right.
It's always that one. Because look, my job at 95% of the time, hey, bro, look, you got a warrant? All right, click, transport. Hey, bro, you was going 85 and 65? Sign here. But that 5% out of the year, they have to show their ass. But I can't risk my family for that 5%. You know what I'm saying? So me, I live on the east side. So whoever I come across, while I'm on the south side, I'm at work. It's cool. I don't got no issue with that. But I don't need nobody running up on me. Hey, you Braxton? While I'm with my kids? Bro, I'm already going. I'm not going to even, bro, don't say who I am while with my kids.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing. People got to understand when officers patrol in different areas is different. Because Fairfax County is completely different. We get all our traffic. We got your heroin addicts, stuff like that. But our traffic is coming from these damn metros. They coming over with no intentions of doing nothing, but still, they come over here in the middle of the night when the metro, they ain't got no ride back home. They still in the car. Guaranteed. They know they want to steal the car to get back home.
Hold on. I'm going to do Kendra's job. Now be careful what you say.
It's the truth. I'm not lying. People come over here and they just commit crimes. So if an officer that's white sees this every day, and I like that, I don't want to cut. So I always tell this when people come to me and I'm on the street and ask me questions like, what's going on? Why we always like, arresting black people? Okay. I say, I have went to the academy with Caucasian individuals and they never been in a fight. They sit up there and tell you they have never been in a physical altercation. And it's amazing to me. And I done played football, basketball, I done fought my whole, and I'm looking at them like, bro, you never been in a fight? And you want to be a cop.
And me, look, I'm from South Georgia. Look, I'm from South Georgia. I'm from the country. I got 3 older brothers. All we did was fight growing up.
So,
it was like, so Bo, I know you got to drop off. So Dr. T chime in here is just from a mental health capacity as to not only being able from the officer's perspective, but then as we're hearing some of their perspective and facts that we may not really know of, how we as citizens can better approach this situation in our own mental health.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm glad we're having this conversation, as complex as it is. And I think our audience is going to, have a wide array of emotions listening to these officers, because we all know intellectually there are good officers, black, white, and every other color. We all know that. But unfortunately, more than likely, we experience the non-good officers as black people. And so while everything you guys are saying is true, most Black people have had at least one experience personally or with someone very, very close to them that just doesn't represent what you guys are saying. So I feel like our audience is going to struggle to connect, because we know they're good officers and nobody is saying there isn't good officers. And what we want to know is, how do we work to get past always having to point out that there's good officers and get down to the real nitty gritty of what's causing the challenges in our community? And if we can't have that conversation, it's like we don't want every good officer to have to defend, or, I know it's a difficult situation, but it just feels like we can't get to everybody's real pain if we're always coming back with, well, they're good officers and most people are doing it by the book. even though we know that the media, and you will never get me to say that the media reports fairly, right? Like I know that
what is that about? Hold on. Dr. T, what is that about when somebody, like from a psychological standpoint, when somebody can't, like when you can say, hey, Black Lives Matter, and they're like, all lives matter. There are good cops. Like, what is that? Like, can you just teach us what that really is about? Because there's something there beyond just like, oh, there are good cops. It's like, I'm not talking about the good cops. I'm talking about the dude that just beat my ass.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of us are most of the time listening to refute what the other person says, right? We're not listening for understanding. We're not listening for comprehension. We're not listening to get on the same accord. And so if you're listening, as most people are just naturally, to refute, you're always going to come back with that thing that refutes. And that's where then the other person escalates because they feel like you didn't hear them. So now they need to say their point louder or stronger. And then it gets into this tug of war where no one actually ever listens or understands or moves past the initial primary point. So you don't have to raise your hand. We're not in class. But so I think that's one of the challenges. But one of the questions, I wanted to ask all the officers is, do you walk around with the same fear that other Black men do, that they could encounter a bad officer at any given time?
It depends on what area. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. Like in South Georgia, like when I go home, I don't stop because I know that area. Like I know that area very well. And just because I'm an officer, I look real regular out of this uniform with this beard and tattoos. So I wouldn't say I'm scared of it. I just don't put myself in a situation where I'm speeding and things like that. I just don't want to deal with it. Even if it happens, it happens. But I just try not to be in that situation. You know what I'm saying? But if it happens, it happens. You know what I'm saying? But
so talk to us from that space. Talk to us from the space of the Black man who knows as much as you know about law enforcement, but still has to work to not be in certain situations, or not, like, you still have to put in a lot of effort to keep yourself safe, even with everything that you know. So the rest of us who don't have all of that, what the heck are we supposed to do?
At the end of the day, yeah. At the end of the day, I'm still a Black man. And at the end of the day, I'm going to use common sense for me not to put myself in certain situations. You know what I'm saying? A lot of stuff that's going on nationwide, whether it's the citizens or the police, a lot of common sense is not being used. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to policing, it's not rocket science at all. It's mostly common sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of stuff that's going on, like, nobody's actually using critical thinking logically about what they're about to do and decisions that they make. They just act off emotions. That's police and citizens. Once we stop putting emotions and stop putting our ego in everything, cops shoot. A lot of these situations ain't gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all about emotions. Some people just can't control their emotions how they should. And then when they can't control their emotions, common sense goes out the damn window.
Taj, I want you to jump in here, Bo, and I know we may lose you, and we appreciate you for being on. And Keenon, we haven't forgot about you as well, because we definitely want you to speak from the policy standpoint, being the deputy director at Noble. But Taj, jump in here from your experience, because you are in Loudoun County, which, for people who don't know, the DMV area is like one of the whitest counties in Virginia. And I mean, it is like we got to be honest, right? And it is usually an area where you don't see a lot of Black people, because it's a very affluent area. And not to say that Black people don't have money, but we don't see oftentimes a lot of us in the Loudoun County area. So as a Black officer, can you touch on the question that Dr. T even asked, as how do you feel, one, being a Black man, being in Loudoun, working with other white officers? Like, just, what are your thoughts and your whole perspective of the conversation?
All right, so for me, I try to keep it separate as much as possible. Like, my coworkers don't follow me on my social media because they don't understand what I do. When I pop those bottles in the club, they're looking at me like, bro, you did what? How much did you spend? Why would you do such a thing? So what Bo said is emotion. I really think it's explicit biases. So when I tell people, like, I don't believe no officer woke up and said they're gonna shoot anybody. I don't care, good or bad. I don't believe they woke up because it not only affects you, it affects your family.
But there's an officer they just saw that he was writing on Facebook talking about we about to have open season killing these niggas. So
listen. Social media is a platform for you to get information out there, but it can be used in negative ways, and that's given. So when I talk to people and I be like, okay, I don't believe any officer will wake up and say they're gonna shoot anybody because it affects their family, it affects everybody. It carries your last name because right now they're gonna release your name. It's facts. They're gonna release your name in 2 to 3 days. It's coming out. Every chief. My chief is very supportive, like yours, Bo. He allows me to do all these. I speak at churches. So I did it before the incident happened with George Floyd. And lo and behold, the emails came in like, hey, you was bridging bring you over here to this Zoom call tomorrow morning. And I'm like, oh, okay, I jump on. But I like to say about the explicit biases. So I don't want to compare us to dogs, right? So I always say, you see somebody walking down the street with a golden retriever or a lassie dog, right? 9 times out of 10, you don't cross the street. You be like, okay, you might be friendly. But when you see a pit bull walking down the street, 9 times out of 10, you're going to cross the street. Why is that? Has a pit bull ever bit you before? No. But the media tells you that a pit bull is a savage. The way the media portrays a pit bull is the way they portray us, and especially you with a beard and me with a beard. And you don't know the slack that you get with our coworkers when I walk in with a beard. They're like, oh, he's one of them. He got a beard. So they're going to automatically think I'm entitled, I'm cocky, and I'm arrogant. Now, you have to deal with that. As soon as you walk into that roll call meeting and they see a black man with a beard and tattoos, oh, here we go. So they might work on eggshells until they get to know you. So this is the type of things that we have to deal with in our profession. Now, let me go back to the recruiting question because I do work in recruiting. I went on the HBC. I went on a tour. I went to Norfolk State. I went to Virginia State. I went everywhere. They won't even look at my tables. It's like they keep walking. And it's like, but we need you here. You're not a cop just for you. You're a cop for everybody that look like you. We have discretion. But if an officer, like I told you, I had somebody he was my squad leader. He told me the first black person he ever met was in the military. So he went through 20 plus years and never met a black person. And you ask other coworkers, and they be like, yeah, I know we had 2 black people in our school, and I can name them. But then you take them and you put them in the inner city and let them work with. So only thing they know about us is what they see on TV. And what they see on TV, New Jack City, Friday, Paid in Full, our favorites, you know. What else? And this is what they see.
So are you saying that the police training is inadequate to deal with the stuff?
It's not. How can you train somebody? People have life experiences. It's so much you can train somebody when they have life experiences dealing with certain people. It's not training. We do the training. Like the mental health question you had. Our department is trying to implement mental health like evaluations every year. So we're trying to implement that like how we do firearms training. Because you should know, a lot of officers kill themselves by the gun. I had an officer shoot himself in our parking garage 3 years ago. He parked his car and shot himself, and a recruit found him. A recruit walked out there and found his car on. He shot himself in the head. It was like, it's mind-boggling. Nobody would have ever knew he had issues going on. But we have issues with police.
And you know, and I think that's a perfect example because it was tremendously sad to see that he killed himself. But the way that it was guised was that young black people had run up on him and shot him in his
No. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about
the you know what I'm thinking about, the one in Silver Spring.
No, I'm talking about an incident that happened in Fairfax County and he shot himself.
I apologize. I'm remiss.
No, that's fine. Yeah, so he shot himself. And like I said, when I talk to my recruits, I try to be more of a mentor than a recruit. So I tell them this is not a job, this is a lifestyle.
Right.
Right now, if I go out and if I do anything, I can make the news. I'm not a rapper. I'm not an athlete. I don't make no money. Well, I do overtime. I'll be killing it. But I don't make as much as I should make. You know what I mean?
Y'all on vacation.
But to your point, Taj, you mentioned how you went on an HBCU tour and they wouldn't even come past your table. And so do you think, like, is there an effort to try to figure out how can we encourage more Black men and women to want to be?
We are applying.
Gotta go.
All right.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
All right, man.
All right.
Y'all be safe, man.
All right. We are applying. In Fairfax County, we have a chart. So I did a temp in recruiting, and of course, it was a black male who got me in here. He's a Q. Shout out to my OG.
Oh, you
he
a
got
Q?
me in here.
Are you a Q?
No.
Okay.
No.
Dr. Rice threw it up.
No. My wife is a Delta. I deal with that all the time. So listen. Yeah, so he pulled me up here and I was like, people gonna say I'm up here because I'm Black. And it was like, so, you know what I mean? That's not it. Like, I qualified. I did the job beforehand. Like right now, I'm doing stuff that we never done. They never did Facebook ads. So that's what I'm doing. I'm targeting the audience. I'm targeting people. They've never done that before. So I brought a whole different vibe to recruiting. So like I said about the HBC, like people don't want to look at that table, but I try to be a mentor and I try to tell them that, you're a cop for just, not just yourself, you're a cop for everyone looks like you. And it's sad, but they really don't. And then the background investigators, some of them are old. So let me tell you a story. A kid, he basically told me he worked at Foot Locker and he was getting discounts on sneakers. Everybody's done that. Everybody worked at Foot Locker, get a discount. They buy their sneakers, they get a discount, and they might sell them to somebody else. For our culture, it might not be as frowned upon. It's like, all right, you got a discount, you utilize your discount, makes a little bit of money. But for a background detective, it's like, oh, you were dishonest. Like you didn't get those sneakers using your discount for yourself. You used them to make a profit. So he'd be disqualified.
But then what you're saying,
do you think that's enough to disqualify somebody?
But then I hear you and I receive it.
Would that disqualify somebody though? To you?
You know what? In my opinion, no. Honestly, honest to God, because if you tell me the truth, because and I work in a space where I don't care what you did, just tell me the truth about what you did. And that is the standard typically, even in like the intelligence space, because everybody's done something. But then the other side of the coin is like, when we look at other officers who are not Black and we start digging their backgrounds, they done a whole lot worse than selling some sneakers on a little discount. So I hear it.
But when y'all say dig their background, y'all normally talk about their policing background, correct?
Policing background, and then also, when you kill somebody, everything you've done starts coming up, right? And coming to the forefront. One of the things is that we're trying to, like, from a policy perspective, is to understand is like, something that came to me off record was that, you might have people that are officers that are also, maybe not mentally stable or are currently receiving PTSD pay from their time in the service. And it almost is like counterintuitive, like, well, how can you have how could you effectively do an extremely high stress job which is policing, which I couldn't handle being a police. I take my hat off to you. I'm not anti-police. I'm not defund the police. Don't get it twisted. But how could you be able to do that high stress where you have to have a high acuity and a high attention to detail at all times job and be receiving pay as and not a disadvantage, as a disabled veteran because you have PTSD. That doesn't mirror up together.
Keenon, can you jump in here from Noble's standpoint of the work, that Noble does and some of the initiatives and things that you might be working on, and just in general, the conversation that we're having? How can a union, especially such as Noble, where oftentimes people, don't even know that there is a Black union that exists, how can we look to people like yourself in terms of being able to, from a recruiting, from getting answers, from just learning more about the law? Like, what's your thoughts on takeaways?
So a lot of things shared and a lot of different points, and Noble is that professional organization. So we're not a union in the sense of, in terms of like a labor organization, not at all. Noble is very focused on working with our police chiefs and our sheriffs across the country to really impart true community policing, supporting our African-American leaders in those organizations and those in the ranks. We were talking earlier about, mental health. It's one of the things I'm working with an agency right now, looking specifically at mental health for African-American officers. It's not the same. We don't go to the same barbershop, so we don't go to the same therapist. We don't have the same issues and concerns. I wake up in the morning and the first thing I find out is I'm black. That's what that man wakes up with. Then I find out, oh, okay, I'm a man.
Legally black.
Right, but that day starts out, I'm black. And so it's dealing with those officers and our leaders. As Bo was talking about earlier, when you have a leader, a chief or a sheriff who's imparting certain principles in that organization, it makes a huge difference. And what's most important to that is, while you may have policies, how is he or she imparting a culture that does not tolerate certain things and emphasizes those things that are most important? And that's what we do at Noble as far as that policy. We're working to impart policies that are reflective of the community, whatever that community may be. And I'll also say it's not a one size fits all. What's good in Loudoun County is not good in Prince George's County. It's a different demographic. It's a different need for the community. It's a different response. The recruiting effort is going to be different. And so to try to make it one size fits all, we know that's not going to work, but we know you got to do something that fits in your community.
So Keenan, can you educate us on what is the law enforcement officer's Bill of Rights and how that impacts executing policing in America?
So the law enforcement officer's Bill of Rights, it can vary from state to state, and it has to do with some, like you said, what is those protections and what allows for that due process for that public servant. Again, a police officer is a public servant. And so under those Bill of Rights, there are lots of different things that may cover. That is from state to state. It varies from those things that you've heard about a lot here recently, qualified immunity. How does that come in? What is the due process?
Because it's a federal law as well. There's a House bill.
Qualified immunity is at that federal level. And so that's what it seeks to do. But that Bill of Rights can vary from state to state and how discipline is handled and those types of things. But it has to do more with the labor of that profession and how it's handled and administered as far as those Bill of Rights and what protections are there for those.
Because one of the things can you explain what qualified immunity means? And because that we just had a Supreme Court basically say, we're not going to weigh in on it. We're going to let Congress act and make law, right? We're not going to make law on qualified immunity. And then the circuit court judges have weighed in and said, basically, we must take action on it. So can you, because most of us black folk, we don't even know what qualified immunity is.
Most of the country had no clue what qualified immunity was, okay? And so they're just learning it. In the simple terms, and this might not be the best way of putting it, but the simple way to get it to the street is, oh, my job made me do it. And so qualified immunity gives you some level of protection for that civil responsibility, particularly if it's found if you violated someone's constitutional rights. And as you look at it from the lay terms in the community, the county, the police department, they have to pay for those settlements, right? So
it's out of taxpayer dollars. So
why
would because I want to understand, from a black police officer, I trust what you say. So Noble, why is qualified immunity beneficial and or why is it not beneficial to us as black people, where we dying crazy by, it seems like, at least from the media, that it's open season.
Well, I would say one of where it can be good is in the sense that officers are charged with a responsibility that at any point they may have to use deadly force. And so having to be in a position where that may be at any call, as I tell people, I've never known anybody to call 911 because it was a great day. Most of the time people are calling 911, it's because it's not going good. And so, if it's that domestic call that you're showing up to, that could be a problem. And so that qualified immunity gives some protections there. But it also can be bad in the sense of, if you are exercising outside of that, your civil rights, someone's civil rights, or the policy, you shouldn't be allowed to, use deadly force because in certain instances. And so you have to look at what is that level of reasonableness that force may have been used, and how do we, really talk about, was my life in danger, as an example, those are some of those things. How do you really measure that?
So then what is the standard for probable cause for the use of deadly force?
Well, man.
And then I'm gonna give back my time, as Maxine would say.
It can vary. I mean, different policies and different agencies have different levels. And so to try to put it all in one is hard. And again, it is also very, very subjective. How I may feel in that moment to say, is my life in danger, may not be how someone else feels, you know? The question is, can I catch that person on foot? You know, I might think I can catch them. Somebody else might not think they could catch them. In high school, I wrestled. So if we get in a tussle, you know, I might not have been trained at the department to do certain things, but my instinct as a wrestler, if we on the mat, I can turn real quick, just like as an Army officer. You're trained, I went through basic training. There are certain things that you learn and you're conditioned to do. And so what I may perceive as a threat may not be the same thing that someone else perceives as a threat.
And I think what is, you know, for the Black community, and I don't speak for all Black people, but I think from our folks, right, is that the concern is that what has been litigated and in the Supreme Court around probable cause is that it's basically, as it stands in the Supreme Court, is that it's basically a fear for your life. Therefore, the use of probable cause, the use of deadly force, if I fear for my life. So the thing in the community, and I genuinely, because we need Black police officers. Y'all protect us. So genuinely, from a Black person's perspective, like that is the thing that is very concerning, because I've experienced, and many Black people have experienced, where white people, if fear is the litmus test.
I think we are.
And that's exactly what I said about.
I was about to say,
with the pit bulls, with the pit bull versus the Lassie dog. People have the threat level is different from a Caucasian female and a big Black male approaching. She's fierce for her life.
Dr. T, you know.
Right, but here's the question, because I agree with you, Officer Beaufort, and I don't know what the solution is, but I think this is the big elephant in the room that policing keeps talking around, that is just a big elephant in the room in the US, is everybody is becoming increasingly aware, if they didn't know, about implicit bias, that people are scared. They have been trained for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years to be afraid of Black people. So how do we take a system that allows people to get off because of their fear, when the moment they start watching TV or interacting with the world, they're taught to be afraid of us, and then you basically, with this immunity thing, give them license to do whatever they want. So how do we really acknowledge that until this country really, really addresses the racism that is structurally here, that everyone is taught to be afraid of Black people, that no matter what training you give a police officer, their natural American racism is going to kick in at some point, and then they're going to have an out. I think about the analogy, in some ways I think police officers have the same problem that doctors have, except doctors don't have any protection, right? So doctors are sworn to do their very best to heal people, even though from the moment you're born, everybody knows you're going to die. But somehow people believe that once a doctor gets involved, the natural course of your life is supposed to somehow not occur. And if you die under the care of a doctor, the doctor's life is going to be ruined because you're going to pay. And there's a whole legal industry around making the doctor pay, because I'm not saying doctors don't make mistakes, just like you were saying police officers don't make mistakes, right? But it's perfectly acceptable. Police officers don't make mistakes. No, you didn't say that. You said that.
Oh, okay. I never said that at all. Don't put that on me.
Everybody but you said police officer makes mistakes. But that there is now, it's acceptable in our country to expect perfection where perfection doesn't exist in doctors. And police officers have that same problem, except they have this huge code, this huge protection where they can just say, I felt scared. And so they don't have the same consequences for acting out what may have. I agree with you, Officer Beaufort. I don't think that any police officer wakes up in the morning and says, I'm gonna kill somebody today. I really, really don't. But because of all the things in this country and the implicit bias, the racial injustice, it happens each and every day. And so how do we actually get to the core of creating policing and police departments that can somehow deal with this or battle this or not fall prey to this and not be protected by this badge or this code that just doesn't seem fair if other professions don't have it.
So I like that example that you use with the doctors, but with a doctor, you get to choose the doctor that you want. You don't get to choose.
No, sometimes, not always.
Yeah, but for the most part, you get to research. You can say, no, I don't want that doctor, or I want that doctor. You choose your doctor, right?
You go to the emergency room because
to the emergency room. Yeah, right. You're right.
It's like a police officer. If you encounter a police officer in the middle of a crisis, you don't get to choose which officer you want. If you're sick and you need help, you're going to get the doctor that's there.
I believe studies will show, I don't know if it's true, but because we have proactive policing and we proactively police the neighborhoods that happen to have a lot of crime, which happen to be a neighborhood with minorities in it. So if you was to stop, proactive policing, the numbers would go down, but it might be more crime. Like I watch the news and it'd be like defund police. And then in DC, it'd be 6 shootings in the same segment. So like we weren't there, but we have to respond to those incidents that are happening in DC and the inner cities, correct? So am I lying? Like, you agree? These are incidents that are occurring, but yet you're talking and no, I have family members that got shot and killed. They've never been shot and killed by a police officer. And that's just my opinion. I mean, that's just facts. I got a tattoo on my arm. My cousin got shot by his neighbor that we knew all our life.
So with you saying that, are you coming from the perspective, because I want to be clear that I'm that I'm hearing you and receiving what you're saying. Are you coming from the perspective that, like when we asked the question and Officer Braxton said, I got to be honest, as a Black man, when I drive through South Georgia, I don't stop. Do you ever fear come from the same perspective when you are in Loudoun County and a lot of your officers are white? Like, are you ever able to say to a fellow officer, you were wrong for what took place, or you showed implicit bias? Like, how do you address that? Because what it feels like I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you, especially you being from Jersey and a lot of us being from cities as well, is that you tend to see the higher statistics of a lot of our brothers and sisters who are in crime and who are doing certain things. And so it kind of, it's like you kind of see, well, these things are happening in the community and we're trying to come in and help, and we're trying to do this, but we're being targeted when these communities should be doing better. Like, am I right? Or what you're saying?
No,
or I want to be clear.
So you talked about boat incident. I don't say I fear, but certain like state troopers, I don't want them to pull me over. it's just like if PG pull me over, I'm like, I feel good. Like PG pull me over, I should be all right. If state, and it's just the way, it's just different. I don't know. They just act a little different towards police, towards everybody. It's just, just what they do.
But if you get pulled over in Loudoun County, do you ever be like, oh, they're not going to see this badge. They're going to see this Black man with the beard and the tattoos?
So I think, honestly, I don't really get as pulled over. And my windows, or some of my vehicles are tinted, like real dark. I never get pulled over. And I believe when they run my plate, and if it come back like a +5, I have nothing. So when you run some people plates that come back and they're like a -32, and they have multiple involvements with police, it's like, oh, it's a red flag for an officer. Like, oh, something might be up. Does that make sense to you?
It does make sense, but I want to know, because I want, and I want to be careful, because I understand that there's certain things that maybe you can say, maybe you can't. But if you weren't a police officer and you get pulled over in Loudoun County, like, I mean, is it fair to say that there's some, like you mentioned earlier about implicit bias, that there's some work, and not trying to single out Loudoun County. I mean, just in general, that there's some work that needs to be done.
I had a coworker and I came home to my wife and I said, I would never want you to be pulled over by the officer. Now, am I supposed to go to my supervisor and be like, hey, I don't think he should be pulling over my wife? No. It's the way he might talk to people. I addressed it on a call with him several times because he talks down on people.
So do you go to the commanding officer and communicate?
No. I'm talking about myself. I wouldn't do that. I address the situation personally. That's how I handle it. So I told him, like, bro, you can't be doing that, because you come to my call, and the situation that's here, you bring it here by telling somebody, sit down, get your hand, sit down, be quiet. Like, bro, We having a nice conversation. He just came here and do all that. When I go over there to run his criminal history, I come back, he's fighting you. That's a problem with you. That's not a problem with, that's a problem just with you as an individual. And I try to explain that to him, bro. You can't talk, but you gotta understand some people, yeah.
Are you
we
allowed?
can talk about this.
Are you, and I get it, but are you allowed in that scenario? Like, is it seen as like, if you address something, is it seen as going against the code of blue? Like if you,
it's not
like
going against the code of blue. That's why we need more diversity in policing. Because if no one is there to say anything, he's gonna do whatever he wants to do. No way you should feel comfortable doing that with my black, when I'm standing right there. There's no way you should like, oh, all right, let me
What
stop.
you saying to him, he don't even care about. Cause
He care about it.
If he don't care about that black body that he got on the ground screaming at, and you ain't going to the commanding officer and you're not writing a report to put something at least in some
now
form.
Now you take it to the whole extreme.
No.
I'm sorry. Now you just yeah, that never occurred. That's you know, I'm just saying how I'm just talking off just little calls like you know that's escalated that could. I'm just giving an example of how it works and how people.
I swear, Taj, because we need y'all. I know, I believe in what you're saying. My cousin Kim was on our show, former DC police lieutenant, worked in the U.S. Attorney's office, and she was like, look, she off record gave us like, look, we need black cops. I know that, but like when it feels like when you're saying now you're taking over the time, going to commanding officer, writing it up. It feels like that's the blue code. It feels like that because, yeah, that was a little, you see that as a little thing, but that's a pattern, that's behavior. That's how I interact with a certain type of people, and that could take somebody's life on the next call when you're not there.
So let me ask, because we have this in kind of support of following and wondering, maybe Keenon can answer this. In the medical field, because that's what I know best, right? So we have this thing called critical incident debriefing, or morbidity or mortality, both kind of similar. They are protected by federal law. They are basically learning opportunities. So when something doesn't go as you would like in a healthcare setting, you bring a group of colleagues together and they sit down and they tear that incident apart with you to help all of us learn from that and decide if we need to make policy changes in our healthcare system so that that incident doesn't happen again. And we do that each and every day in the healthcare field because we want to keep elevating the work that we do and decreasing the number of bad incidents. Does policing have some kind of process like that that allows them to debrief these little incidents so that they don't keep escalating to the big incidents we see on the news?
So it varies, and they do that a lot of times. And I will say over the most recent, probably decade, the implementation of body cameras, you do have a lot of incidents where commanding officers are looking at that footage and they're trying to catch some things earlier. And that makes a big difference to try to figure out how do we address those things. But it goes ultimately to the culture of that organization. And it goes to, like you said, that implicit bias. So, you know, when you're trying to develop that organization, you have to make those types of behaviors intolerable. It has to be very clear that this is not tolerated in our agency. And most importantly, those officers that step up and intervene, they have to build the culture. And I want to say even outside of the policy, they build a culture of accountability within each other. And that's definitely, I heard what Taj and Bo were saying. It's like, look, I'm gonna address my fellow officer and check that early, because we're gonna set this tone, we're gonna set this standard at this agency that does not happen. It is not allowable and it's not acceptable. So there are times when they do kind of do those after action type reviews. How can we figure that out? But I think it comes back to that officer and that culture. Just to be honest, look, that white officer does not understand that no matter the background of that individual, when you pull them over, you pull a black man over, his heart rate is through the roof. Mm-hmm. It's through the roof. Ain't talk to him, and he said it. Don't know what I'm pulled over for. I'll make it, personal. I don't even know what I'm pulled over for. I think I was going the right speed limit. I think that the brake lights work, but my heart rate is already through the roof. Mm-hmm. I got so much going on psychologically. Even as he starts talking, I'm like, please, Lord, don't let me die. You want my what? I didn't hear anything. And it's developing and understanding within each of us that we have some things that are going on. Make sure that officer understands. I could pull over a car, and I can tell you right now, as an implicit bias as an officer, I could almost tell you the driver of that car just by the type that I pulled over. And you might be like, what?
Oh, that Impala got a black person in it. You know that Dodge Charger. You know what it is.
And you know,
I'm
I had
looking at
that
the car,
blacked out
right.
Chrysler.
Come on.
You know, I mean, I'm being honest with you. You're like, you're saying, okay, I got this Subaru Outback I done pulled over. I know.
You know what that don't tread on me, Sam.
So, but that's an implicit bias. I've already made a decision about this driver who I haven't even seen. I just looked at their car. I saw 26.2 soccer ball, and I assumed it was this. And it could be totally different.
But Keenon, and I want to, because, and I know we're getting ready to close out soon, and we appreciate you all's time. You mentioned that, but then we also, so there was a time in my life where I lived with my father deep down in rural Virginia, and we had guys who rode tractor trailers to school or had those big trucks with the Confederate flags on them sitting on 30s, and you knew who was driving that truck. So it's like when you pull one of those trucks over, or you see what they're doing, and they done rode through the mud or something like that.
They done gone jeeping and everything, man.
Right, and it's like what it feels like, is that those same implicit biases don't occur with those people.
I'll be honest with you and say that same implicit bias does occur. If I'm that officer and I'm being candid, and I see that sticker on the back of that truck, it's sitting.
It does.
I already know who I'm dealing with. I haven't even seen the driver, but I've already concluded in my mind, just being honest with you. I know who I'm dealing with. I know I'm going to get an attitude because he's going to look at my skin and have an attitude. And let me figure out who else is he called in this interim time between when I stopped them and what else I might have to deal with. It's an implicit bias already and how I'm going to address that situation as well. So even from that officer, unfortunately, I've already made a determination on how I'm going to handle this situation. And I don't even know the driver. And those are one of the things that no matter what policy we create, we cannot get rid of fear just by writing a law. It's going to exist. And that fear is going to exist.
Or training.
So
then what is the solution? Because what Dr. T talked about.
So the solution is.
Hold on. I'm finished this. This is important. Because what Dr. T talked about with the mortality review, that is a federal mandate. It is executed via the state and locality, but that is a federal mandate. And when we went to FOP and said, look, you need a morbidity review board, and that needs to be a state and locality requirement because it's pushed down federally, just like with the medical practice. There was like, fuck no. Now we do that because, and so there's a lot of talk around, and I'm not attacking you, but I'm asking for the people. How do we execute this so that, because there's a lot of like, well, that's wherever you are. There's a lot of locality piece of it. I know, and I apologize. I really am not. But seriously, because Black Lives Matter and they're on the line right now.
Cool.
Like, there's a lot of discretion and discernment. But then when we go with answers and solutions like Dr. T brought, the FOP is like, nah. We want to have our discernment. We want to be able to have that discernment. We don't want that transparency. So as a citizen, that feels like, yo, what the fuck is up? I'm just keeping it real.
Taj, can you chime in just with your last words and what you would say in terms of if you feel like there's any type of solution that we could do or that we could talk about or that we could address in terms of some of the biases that exist, along with just any last word that you want to say, and then Keenon as well, and then we'll go ahead and begin to close out.
You guys can you hear me? You guys are breaking up. I don't know if it's mine.
Okay, let me repeat myself. Taj, can you hear me okay?
Hello? Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, so I wanted to say,
but you're breaking up, but I think I could pick it up.
Okay, can you give your last words on what you would say in terms of, is there anything that we can do to start addressing some of the issues that we may be dealing with or that people are feeling? Is there any last words you may have?
I just want to say, go to your local police department page and see how you can get involved. get involved as much as possible with your agencies that's in your area, the youth, anything you can do to better us as a people. Just continue to do that. And if you do see a Black officer, it won't hurt to say some kind words. I'm telling you right now, it goes a long way, because you don't know what we got to deal with on both sides. We don't. A lot of Black officers don't want to stand on the front lines. They really don't. Especially when you guys are, giving us a hard time, and we understand. We feel the same pain that you feel. I just want you guys to know that we feel it also.
We think.
You heard that?
Yeah, we did. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you, and thank you for your time today. Keenon, what would you say? Like, is there any last words that you will offer as well as to from your level and being able to see things from a more policy perspective? You were getting ready to say something from what you thought about from a solution standpoint. Could you share that?
Sure. So I would say, number one, there are more officers who are in support of the change, the reform, whatever word you want to use. They want to see the profession reach the ultimate goal that they signed up for. And I say support that goal. I definitely believe that there are things that we're doing at Noble that look at federal level requirements and standards. And I think that those are really good steps. I think there are great things to put in place at the federal level as we start talking about Department of Justice and pattern and practice investigations, officer misconduct registries. We need to know where the bad cops are so that they aren't rehired at the next town over. And so those are great things to do. And those are things that Noble is pushing. We're looking at things like getting rid of chokeholds altogether. It needs to, those things need to end because they have a bad stigma. They aren't what we need in our community. They aren't about public safety. We want to make sure we create those environments. And so I would say, similar to what Taj says, the major difference and the quick difference that you can make is at your local agency. Your local police officers, your local sheriff, your local police chief will answer a lot faster than a congressional bill gets passed. And so if you really, truly want to make that impact, start right now with the people that probably have been fighting this in your local community for decades, trying to get things done. If they can get more of that impact, I think that the voices are ready to be heard. And right now is the moment to seize that opportunity to make those changes happen.
Can people who aren't police officers also work with Noble as well for certain initiatives?
Absolutely. We have lots of
yes.
that are members and they come out with Noble. We have a program called the Law in Your Community where we work with community organizations. It focuses on youth, mainly ages 13 to 18 as we look at that demographic and their engagement with law enforcement. But that's built around the community engagement and how we have a community conversation with law enforcement. So definitely can be a supporter of Noble and help us as we develop those community partnerships with law enforcement.
Dr. T, what's your last words and takeaway?
First, I want to probably steal Star's thing and say gratitude. This is incredibly difficult conversation to have. It's very hard because it's hard to be Black in America. I'm sure it's hard to be a Black cop in America. And it's hard to live with the hat of the heavy systemic racism and racial injustice that happens to us each and every day. And then to be a part of the system that really upholds that has got to be incredibly difficult. So I'm grateful that we are trying to have this conversation. And I agree with both Officer Beaufort and Keenon to say that we need to get involved on the local level. We need to be on the police review boards or whatever is available in your community. And in order for us to do that, in order for us to have these difficult conversations, we have to take care of ourselves. So I'm going to harp on my self-care. We started out with that with the officers, and I think we could wrap up with that and think about what are your creative outlets? What are the ways that you take care of yourself? It might be therapy. It might be physical activity. It might be spirituality. It might be meditation, but please make sure during these trying times that you take care of yourself, because we are not going to be able to do this very difficult work if we don't practice self-care first.
No.
Thank you. Star, what's your takeaway?
Okay, Dr. T, you took my gratitude. But I got two things, okay? So the first piece is that, I'm gonna disagree on some points, okay? And I'm a policy person, and I'm gonna only disagree because, I wanna make sure y'all safe and that us as Black people are safe. And I think the federal piece, just like with the medical community, the federal piece is so important because one, in local policing, many, if not most local policing departments are receiving a substantial amount of federal funding, right? Just to keep the doors open. Not to mention federal, okay, I see the nobles shaking their head, but I said we're gonna disagree, so it's all good, right? So the substantial amount of federal funding that is trickling down through pass-through funds into local policing. So federal is important from a funding perspective. It's important from a militarization standpoint for them using the DoD supply. So federal is where we need to hit federal hard, okay? We need to do local as well, but federal is what sets the standard and the premium, if you will, on policing. And so I hope that we can come to the table on a federal level around, qualified immunity, around which the Supreme Court has basically said Congress get busy making law, and two, around the law enforcement officer Bill of Rights, and understanding that. And then we want to do what we've done with mortality and morbidity in the medical space around all different types of mortality and morbidity, where it set a federal standard for review of that with policing. And that is not as Dr. Tiso beautifully articulated, it's not you did this wrong, it's how do I take and deconstruct what happened, which may be well within the confines of the existing and current law, and make a better law, right? Because we're constantly making law. What is not always necessarily the best or, what will be in the future. And then the last piece of the federal point is around probable cause. And, it's gone to the Supreme Court. There are points that can be legislated on a federal level. So I think those four pieces from a federal perspective are critical, that we can come to the table with an honest conversation with FOP, who is the most powerful union in the nation, one of the most powerful. I think between the teachers and the FOP, they are the most powerful and well-funded. So that's my first piece. Federal is critical and important. And, I'm standing on my soapbox every day. I did a call with Russell Simmons last night at like midnight because I care about y'all as Black officers. Y'all are under the gun too, because if you make the wrong move, we got to protect y'all too. So we need y'all. We need to protect y'all. Y'all ain't going to be able to say, my dad was junior rep. I know what y'all going through. I know what y'all going. We ain't got to talk about it online. And then the last piece is, get involved in local, and that, these are Black lives, because that officer that you hope wouldn't pull your wife over may pull your son over, may pull my son over, right? And so I got to care about your kid. I got to care about me and mine. And so back to Dr. Royce's point about community, and that us as Black people, we have to start going back to community first, and that we are all community. I don't have to agree with everything you said. I don't have to I could be like, hey, the facts say what you said is not true, but we are community, and I got to protect you and you got to protect me. So I say federal, this is the time. We have momentum. This is the time to push federal, because what federal does is what will drive local, is what will hold locals' hand down to do the right thing. And then we're going to get busy on local. But right now, we're going to stick on federal, because it's time to make some moves. And then the two is community. Don't take it as an attack. I'm protecting Black lives, including your Black life.
Well, I don't know what to say after that, but I'm going to be vulnerable, close out, and just say that I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know what to say in certain regards, because for me, conversation is how I thrive. It's how I communicate and think. It's literally my air. And so it's part of my functioning capability, where conversations like these help me look at certain scenarios from different perspectives. And I think that what my hope is that anyone who will be listening would take a look at conversations, would take a look at facts, and would understand certain perspectives. And I'm gonna say it, not just from our perspective, but from the officers' perspectives at times too, which I think because of, just like as we've mentioned, that there's implicit bias that gets shown on media with Black people, there is implicit bias that gets shown on media with police officers. And oftentimes we miss that. And so, you know, I give an example. I'm getting ready to go to Alabama next week with my daughter, and my husband refuses to go with me because he's afraid that being dark skinned, being a Black man, he does not want to even touch the state of Alabama. And I felt some type of way, like I couldn't understand what you mean, because in my mind, I'm just thinking like it'll be okay. But for him as a man, as a Black man, he just felt like it's not going to be okay for me, possibly. And what I hate is for someone that I love, or even other men and women who might feel the same way, who won't even go to certain places because they fear or think that the color of their skin will be a dictator of their life. And what I would like is hopefully that we can have more conversations, we can have more action-oriented things that happen from a standpoint where we can take a look at addressing some of these things that do exist. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done across the board, not only within officers, but within our own communities. And I stand by that. There is work that needs to be done across the board. And so, you know, but for me, my takeaway is I would like to see us do the work in both areas. And I'm hoping that this can just continue to be a step in the right direction and understanding. I salute you all. I thank you for, you know, one, being willing to join the force and try to set an example of something different. And like you said, Taj, you know, you go in and you already, you know, there may be this bias on yourself, but you go in every day and you try to change that narrative. And so that is appreciated. And we do need people like you. We do need people like Bo, and we do need people like you, Keenon, too, who is sitting there from the perspective of how do we take a look at some of these things that a lot of us aren't seeing. So I appreciate you all. I thank you. I don't have the right answer or maybe even the right thought, but I think that it's a start, and I'm glad that we could have this conversation today. So, and we out.
We out.